Hello and welcome to Hit the Front Page of Hacker News. My name is Michael Lynch, and in this course I'm going to show you how to write content that succeeds on Hacker News. So why should you care about Hacker News? First, it's a very large audience. Hacker News attracts around 4 million page views per day. So that alone wouldn't be that interesting because there are plenty of sites that have that kind of traffic or more. But what sets Hacker News apart is that they're open in terms of who's allowed to submit content and what topics they're interested in. So for example, TechCrunch is a popular tech site, but you can't just sign up for a TechCrunch account, submit an article, and then 10 minutes later it's on the front page of TechCrunch in front of millions of people. Whereas on Hacker News, that is possible. It's also a tech-savvy audience, so if you write about software or other topics in tech, or you have a product that would appeal to people in the tech world, it's a great audience for you to be able to tap into. And the other thing that sets Hacker News apart is that because it's part of Y Combinator, the startup incubator, a lot of the readers on that site are founders themselves or run small businesses. So they're interested in products that are useful to them. And a lot of other social networks have rules against submitting self-promotion, so submitting something that people have to pay money for or submitting content that you wrote yourself. But Hacker News doesn't have those rules. And if you can submit a product tastefully and you offer something that is of value to that audience, people are going to appreciate it. It also can bring attention from other bigger sites. So I wrote an article earlier this year about data privacy practices at Stripe, and The Register, which is an online newspaper about security and privacy, wrote their own article that cited my blog post, and that brought it attention from an entirely new audience. So that happens a lot. There are a lot of other bloggers and aggregators that read Hacker News looking for ideas. And so because of that, it improves search results when people are searching for topics related to your page. Another reason is that a lot of people on Hacker News have their own websites, have their own blogs, and so if you write high-quality content, it's likely that they'll link to you or include you in newsletters, so it really improves the way that people can find you through search engines. So that's Hacker News, so why should you take a course about it? So if you're familiar with other social networks and you've participated in Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, Hacker News is pretty different. The culture on Hacker News and the etiquette is very unique from those other social networks. And the way that submitting content and the way that ranking works is different than other sites you might be familiar with. It's pretty hard to learn on Hacker News. So if you have ever submitted content to Hacker News, you'll know that there's pretty much only two outcomes. You either hit the front page and you get a ton of attention and a ton of readers, or you just completely sail by and nobody notices your post at all. And so in the case where it just sails by, it's really hard to learn from that. You don't know if it was actually a good quality post and it just happened to get unlucky. And even if you did something wrong, you don't know what you did wrong. And so I've spent the last 3 years through trial and error learning to get good at Hacker News. And in that time, 18 of my posts have reached the front page. So if you're familiar with other sites like Reddit, where getting to the front page is not necessarily that hard, depending on what part of Reddit you post to, I'm going to ask you to take my word for it at this point that Hacker News is hard. Getting to the front page of Hacker News 18 times is difficult. And 5 of those posts reached the #1 slot, which is even harder. But 11 of those have been in the last 12 months, and that really highlights the fact that the last year has been when I really tuned my writing and improved my techniques and made my content more engaging and found topics that are interesting to the audience in Hacker News. My most popular article is a post called Why I Quit Google to Work for Myself, about quitting my job as a software engineer to start my own businesses. And I submitted that to Hacker News, and within the first week, it got 300,000 unique readers. And through the course of the year, over 500,000 people read that article, and largely driven by Hacker News. And newspapers reached out to me, people reached out to me offering me jobs, so getting a lot of attention on Hacker News can bring a lot of opportunities. And then earlier this year, I launched a new business where I sell a server administration device that's based on the Raspberry Pi. And before I posted to Hacker News about it, I had only sold 2. And then as soon as I posted to Hacker News, I completely sold out of stock. I did $8,500 of sales that month, And then you can see a trough of sorrow after, but that's really just because I didn't have enough inventory. It wasn't until October that I was able to get ahead of inventory, and now it's become a $10,000 to $12,000 a month business, and that's from a successful launch on Hacker News. So who should take this course? So if you are a tech blogger and you are interested in tapping into the audience at Hacker News, it can show you a lot of ways to figure out how to pick topics and attune your writing to make it appeal to the audience there. If you're the founder or employee of a startup, I can show you ways to bring attention to your startup and get attention from investors, employees, and users. So I think there's a pervasive idea among techies, especially among tech founders, that you have to build your way to success. Like if you write enough code, you'll eventually succeed. But in my experience, you can also write your way to success. If you write high quality content, people will be interested in it and be interested in what you're doing. And then lastly, if you're just a Hacker News junkie and you want to understand more about how the sausage is made from the author's perspective, this should be an interesting course for you. So this course is divided into 7 parts, which I'm going to cover briefly in the next few sections. So the first is understand Hacker News. So as I mentioned, the culture there is pretty unique, and so it's easy to unintentionally break the rules and get your account penalized, your domain penalized. So I'm going to show you how to act within the rules of Hacker News and how to choose topics that are going to be interesting to the audience there. So I go more into that in the next section, where a lot of people have trouble with Hacker News, where they'll spend a ton of time writing an article and not realize that just the premise was incorrect. It's a topic that has a very low chance of succeeding on Hacker News in the first place. So I'm going to show you how to estimate what your chances of success are on Hacker News with your articles, and how to choose topics that are interesting both to you and the audience on Hacker News. Next, I'm going to talk about finding a plan B. Hacker News has a large degree of luck. As I mentioned before, you can either succeed or get completely ignored. So if you hang all your hopes on getting to the front page of Hacker News, you're going to be disappointed a lot. And so I'm going to talk about finding alternate channels where you can share your content to maximize the chances that you're successful in at least one of them. Next thing, I talked about the craft of writing. So for the first year I kept a blog, I would get at most 10 to 20 unique readers per day. And around the 1-year mark, I started really focusing on the craft of writing and thinking about what techniques would make it more engaging. And almost immediately, it was a 10 to 100 times difference in results I got. Right after I started working with an editor and learning about techniques for better writing, I was getting articles that reached the front page of Hacker News and were getting thousands of page views per day. Next, I'm going to talk about the process of submitting your content to Hacker News. There's more to it than just submitting a link. I'm going to talk about how you can participate in the comment thread effectively, and what to do if you don't end up making it to the front page, like how you can understand what happened and what you can do to improve next time. And lastly, I'm going to talk about my process. So I've honed a writing habit and techniques over the past 3 years, and so I'm going to walk you through everything that I do, from the way that I come up with ideas to writing the first draft to editing it and publishing it and submitting it. So hopefully there will be something there that you can adopt for your process. And with that, let's begin. The next section is Understand Hacker News.